Welcome to another episode of 204 Hoops Talk. I'm Blaine Stenson.
And I'm Arjun Narula.
Today, we are going to get into a few topics. We're going to get into LeBron, and then we're going to talk about some of these injury issues that the NBA has been having. But I think we should start the episode on a positive note. So the other night, against the New Orleans Pelicans in the first quarter, LeBron James hit a three to pass the 50,000 point mark for regular season and playoffs combined. This is really a tremendous feat that I don't think anybody really, I don't think anybody really thought that would happen. I mean, you look at Kareem, right? Kareem is, I believe, second on that list in combined points. He's at 44,000.
Yeah.
Right? So he's 6,
and no one thought he was going to get past.
Yeah, well, that's just it. I mean, it was already, when he broke the record last year, become the league's all-time leading scorer, regular season wise, which seems to be the record that mattered and stuff. They didn't really do this whole combined thing. Yeah. But he's also the league's all-time leading playoff scorer. So, I mean, I think it just speaks to his longevity, him being able to play 22 years up until this point. And I mean, the only other guy that's played this many seasons is your guy, Vince Carter. And Vince was averaging 4 or 5 points a game, maybe, if my recollection is correct, which is no shade on Vince Carter at all.
But he was a locker room guy towards the end of his career, and it was a different trajectory for Vince, right? A lot of injuries. LeBron has sustained this for so long. And the other funny thing is that I heard Nick Wright saying that if someone were to even try to eclipse this record, they would have to play 92 games a season and average what Jordan averaged for, I think, 19 or 20 years, which I don't see happening in your and mine lifetime, to be honest.
No, I think this is kind of one of those records in sports that's kind of up there with, Emmitt Smith, his 18,000 rushing yards, Cy Young, for in baseball with 749 complete games, and I believe that currently right now, I want to say it's Clayton Kershaw with 29 complete games, and he's the current leader.
That's a huge gap.
So granted, I mean, that was a long time ago, and games change, and the game's probably a little bit more competitive than it used to be. It's a longer game, but that's baseball. But it's kind of one of those. This is kind of one of those. How I would say it's kind of one of those mythical numbers that I don't think is ever going to be touched, and if it is, it's going to be a long time before that happens.
Yeah, I think what's also worth talking about is the Lakers' playoff seeding. They're number 2 right now in the West, and I remember everybody was criticizing, LeBron hired his best friend and his podcast buddy and and all this and all that, but things are working. They had a really strong game against Denver and kind of locked down Jokic, or contained him. I don't want to use the word lockdown, but 2 big wins against the Clippers in close games. So I'm not saying it's going to be a cakewalk for them in the West, but they're getting attention, and I don't know who they're going to play right now in the 7th seed, but I'm assuming that they're probably the favorites. I'm not sure who's sitting in that spot right now. You could probably take a look and let me know.
Well, I've got the standings up in front of me here, and currently in 7 is Minnesota. They're a half game behind Golden State, who's in 6th, so that's crossing that, avoiding the play-in. The Clippers are a game behind them, but behind Minnesota, and then a half game behind them is Sacramento, and then a full game behind that is the Dallas Mavericks, which we will get into in a little while, but I expect them to probably, good chance they're going to fall out of this picture. I mean, they've got a 2.5 point lead or game lead over the Phoenix Suns right now. Yeah. But with Kyrie going down, Anthony Davis possibly getting, shut down for the season. Another team that could possibly possibly catch them is Portland. They're something like 16-6 or something like that in their last 20, 22 games
2
after that
games.
abysmal start, but they were so far behind, they've got so much ground to kind of
Cover.
cover kind of thing. But as for the Lakers, I mean, I think if they play Minnesota, I really like their chances against Minnesota. Minnesota really has been underwhelming this season. They've played better in the second half of the season, and they've kind of got it together and stuff. But losing Karl Anthony Towns was just
Big blow.
which is a big blow. Which I got to admit, when I saw the trade, I actually thought it was going to be a little bit better of a fit, because I didn't think that he fit all that well with Gobert and stuff. But I mean, Julius Randle again is just showing that he's underwhelming, I guess would be the term to use again.
Hasn't panned out like they thought he would, but
yeah, but I mean, like, going back to the Lakers though, I mean, just since they traded for Luka, they're 9-2.
Yep.
Right.
And he came off a long-term injury.
Yeah. So they're 9-2. They've won 8 straight. They're 40-21. Yeah, I think they're sitting really good. Their defense is playing phenomenal. What I like about Luka with LeBron is LeBron has been playing better defense than I've seen him play in years, because he's not having to
bring up the ball. Yeah. You can be the second guy and play off the ball. So a lot of actions that they run for him. And Luka can make any pass that LeBron could out of a double team. Like, somebody said that, and I totally agree. So
certainly. Yeah. I saw something today, and it was a post, and they were comparing Luka to a couple point guards from the past. They were comparing him and saying that he's a combination of Jason Kidd and Magic Johnson. And I kind of looked at that and I thought, okay, maybe, but like the closest comparison I would have to him is to his own teammate right now, is to LeBron, just with Paul Pierce athleticism, basically.
Size, oversized, court vision, could kind of see over doubles. Because how tall is Luka? 6'6", 6'7" around?
No, I think he's close to 6'9".
Okay, so he's probably closer to LeBron's height than
I could be wrong on that, but I know he's for sure taller than 6'6", but he's 6'7" to 6'9", but I think it's about 6'8", 6'9", somewhere in that in that range. And he's just a phenomenal player. But LeBron, what I think is just so amazing about him is the level that he's still playing at. Like, the guy's shown almost no offensive decline outside of the fact, okay, he doesn't go to the basket quite as much. But as we talked about, I believe in one of our last episodes, he is such a better shooter than he used to be. Like, when he played with the, his first stint with the Cavs, even up into the point with his second stint with the Cavs, you knew he could get hot and he could make some jumpers and stuff, but he was never viewed as a shooter, at least from three-point range. And I mean, there was a time when he struggled from mid-range. As great as he was, I mean, you look at the 2014 finals against San Antonio. Well, and even the season before in 2013, San Antonio made a concerted effort to step back from him and let him and D Wade shoot that jump shot, and we were not going to let them, get to the basket. Was kind of their mentality. And I mean, you can't do that with him now, because I mean, when he shoots that three, more times than not, I expect it to go in, which is not something I ever expected from LeBron James. So I think it just speaks to how great he really is. But and just getting back to his 50,000 points, like, currently second in the league right now for active players. And just to touch on the point that you made earlier about how untouchable this record probably is and how we probably won't see it. Look at a guy like Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is only 4 years behind LeBron, and he's at 35,000 career points collectively.
15,000 behind.
15,000 difference. Now, granted, he did miss, there was a time where he missed an entire full season with Brooklyn, and I believe there was a season in OKC where he missed a good portion, if not most of the season, because of an injury. So he's had a couple years where, that hasn't happened. And then, in the playoffs and stuff like that, obviously his last year in Golden State, he what I can't even remember what round that was that he got hurt in, but I want to say that was it was the second round or something, or
It
late.
was early because then he came back against the Raptors and then hurt himself again.
Yeah, in the within 2 quarters when they kind of pushed him back. So, but you look at a guy who's revered as a scorer with a guy like Kevin Durant, and he's 15,000 points behind LeBron, a guy that many people have said over the years isn't a prototypical scorer like a Kobe or a Carmelo or a Mike or Kevin Durant, and in this in this comparison and stuff. It's just staggering. Now, I have always fought back against the whole notion that he's a pass first player. Nobody who averages 27 points a game is a pass first player, despite him averaging 7 assists. So I wouldn't consider him a pass first player. He's a very willing passer and a very great passer. I still think that is the best part of his game, is his ability to pass the ball.
Definitely.
But I mean, the fact that he's still doing it at this point in his career, and the Lakers are now this competitive. I mean, they are so much better with Luka on their team than they were with Anthony Davis, and even defensively, they've played better defensively. Since Luka came over, when they're going to this small ball, and Jackson Hayes, he's stepped in pretty good into that starting lineup and stuff. He's not, a huge game changer by any stretch and stuff, but he's playing his role. And they got that kid, I can't remember his
Vanderbilt, I think.
No, Vanderbilt's he's one of their wing players that kind of plays that 4. But there was a kid that I saw. Trey Jemison the third. He's kind of stepped in and played some of that backup role against at center and stuff. And he's had some okay moments. He's young, and he's very raw and all that. Like, he's only 25 years old, but they've got some big body, so it's not like they totally went and they don't have any size that they can throw in there. Plus, they've got Alex Len, who's on their team as well. So
some serviceable guys, but
I think it's I think it's a good collection of players, and going into next season, I really think that they're going to attract some big time free agents. Maybe not in terms of another star, and I really don't in this league now with this second apron hard cap and all that stuff. It's really hard to kind of put three guys together on the same team without someone taking a significant pay cut. So I don't see that happening, but just getting role players, getting 3-and-D guys, probably getting, guys like, whether or not they, remain on the same team, I'm sure they will. But, the guys like the Gaffords and the Derek Lively's who were on Luka's former team.
Yeah. Or even guys like KCP, like in the 2020 run that helped him, just 3-and-D guys that are just, you don't got to run plays for. That's kind of what I think would take them there. But I'm wondering if we'll see a Celtics Lakers final. People have been talking about the possibility of it.
Well, I mean, that is very it is very possible. I personally would like to see it,
or a Lakers Knicks final.
Yeah, I do like that one a little bit better, just for the simple fact as much as the Knicks are a top rival of my Heat and all this stuff, but basketball is better when the Knicks are good, when Madison Square Garden is full and it's competitive there. I mean, they're now the league's second most valuable team behind the Golden State Warriors in terms of monetary value, which I think once Steph Curry retires, I think things will go back to normal, and I think the value of the Warriors will decline, because I don't think that they're gonna
sustain that long term.
No, and the Knicks can be in the basement of the NBA, and they're still the second, as of now, the second most valuable franchise. So in my estimation, I would still call them the most valuable franchise in the league.
Yeah.
So that would be good. I would like to see them against Boston, though, just because of the historic
rivalry there,
aspect of that. And there's a whole generation of basketball fans now that have grown up and they haven't seen a Celtics Lakers final and stuff. And I remember how big of a deal that was, when we were kids, and Kobe and his squad, Powell and Andrew Bynum, and Derek Fisher and stuff, and they're going up against Paul Pierce and KG and Ray Allen, and
Rondo.
that was awesome to see that, because there was also the, regardless of who was on the court, there was just the history of those two teams in the, in the finals, which for so long was really dominated by Boston, and then
LA kind of started catching up.
yeah, well, now they're no, Boston's one ahead of them in championships again, I believe, now that now that they won last year and stuff like that. But
yeah. But moving on from LeBron, there's been a lot of injuries in the league in the last bit. I mean, most notably, Kyrie went down with an ACL tear last week. And what are your thoughts on that, and just what that means for Dallas?
Well, I mean, when you look at them, right, they've got Kyrie. Kyrie is now out, and he's going to be out for at least 9 months, if not a full year. So he may not be back until this time next year, which pretty much writes them off for this year and potentially next year as well. And this is a team that swore up and down that they were doing this AD trade because they wanted to compete for a championship, and now that is not going to happen. And we had touched on this, before with when the trade went down, about them basically trading for a guy who's glass. I hate to disparage Anthony Davis, but that's just the reality of it. But like, just the list of their injuries, right? You've got Kyrie with the ACL. AD is still out with this abductor strain, and there's some talk about possibly shutting him down for the season, which I think they may as well just do, because what's the point of playing for 10th spot? I mean, really, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Gafford has been out. Derek Lively's been out for a while with I believe it's a stress fracture. Who else did they have out? Hardy, their now backup point guard, who was their third string, he just went down on Monday. So in terms of, you look at it, really their primary ball handler now is Spencer Dinwiddie, who's a very serviceable player and stuff, but he's not the offensive punch that Kyrie Irving is. And then they've got who's now going to step in as their backup point guard in all likelihood is Brandon Williams, who's on a 2-way contract. So, I mean, it's really not looking good for them, and I really feel bad for their fans, because, like I said, they're really, I think they're really going to fall off a cliff here. Now, like I said, they've got a 2.5-point lead, but there's still 20 games to go. So it's very, very conceivable for them to lose that. Phoenix wins 3 or 4 in a row, they lose 3 or 4 in a row, and there's your flip right there, right? So. Yeah, I think it's going to be really, really tough for them. And then, just from Kyrie's perspective, right? He had all those problems in Brooklyn, and he was really, really getting a bad rap for that. And he's really, since he got to Dallas, there's been no issues. Like not one. He's been happy.
He's been playing great ball,
and he's been the definition of professionalism. Yes, he's missed some games for, just little nagging injuries here and there and stuff, but that happens with everybody. But he's been mostly healthy. He's played really good ball. And then even after the Luka trade there for those games, he was really doing his best to kind of keep that team afloat. And
he had 35, I think, when they played the Lakers.
Yeah, so it's really not looking good. It's really not looking good for Dallas.
No.
But I mean, even that whole bottom, like, just going back to the standings and stuff. I mean, Sacramento, they've kind of lost their way now that De'Aaron Fox is gone. I saw today Domantas Sabonis is wants to have a sit down with them and kind of discuss the direction of the franchise before he makes a decision on if he wants out or not. Phoenix, they're talking about trading Kevin Durant, and from everything I've read and gathered, he is going to get traded this summer. I think that is completely fallen apart. I mean, they're 3-7 in their last 10, and they're sub 500 in their conference. And
wonder if OKC goes after them with all the first round picks they have if they don't win this year.
I could see it. At this point, I mean, Sam Presti, right? He's got all these assets, and he's put together a tremendous team. So props to him for that. But at some point, they've got I don't even remember what the number is for picks, but it's something like 23
It's insane,
or
yeah.
24 picks. So at some point, you can't draft that many players and keep them all.
Yeah.
So you've got to do something with those picks at some point, right? So do you offload a few of those, give Phoenix a chance to, kind of get a kickstart a rebuild here and
Yeah.
go pick up Kevin Durant? Because I mean, yes, he deals with, kind of some nagging injuries every year and, all that, but he always seems to be ready to go for the playoffs outside
Yeah.
of the, the couple of years that we mentioned earlier. And I mean, you know, they're so far ahead of OKC. They're so far ahead of everybody this year, and I know that there was I saw another article recently that was kind of touching on the fact that there's not a lot of people that are really fearing them because of
Yeah. They're so young.
because of their youth and their inexperience and stuff. And I can totally see that, but they are a great team. And at some point, if it's not this year, it's going to be next year. Once they've kind of got those playoff battles under their belt, they are
Yeah.
going to be championship contenders for a long time, injuries permitting. But I mean, you throw Kevin Durant on that team next year, I would say that's the favorite to win the championship, hands down. And that might be the best OKC team that he would have ever played on.
Yeah, I mean, if Chet and SGA and him are still there, and like you said, you offload some picks, you keep that core together with Dort and everything. I think they have like you said, a fighter's chance for sure. One other kind of injury that caught the headlines was Joel Embiid. He's been someone that's been struggling with injuries for a while, but he went down last week or the week before. It's a very awkward landing. He had a really uh, you know, almost like a chase down contest on a left corner three. It looked like he was doing like a triple jump type of approach and landed and just his leg and knee. Now there's talks about, looking at will he potentially be forced to medically retire? And that's a whole different scenario with independent doctors and things like that, and kind of what Bosch had to go through. But, with that and then shutting down PG as well, I feel bad for Tyrese Maxey because he's been the one consistent, but I don't know what you do with that team. There's been stuff with Nick Nurse too, when is he the right coach and what's happening? But what are your thoughts on just kind of Embiid, the Sixers, and what that looks like going forward?
Well, this has been an ongoing issue with him for his entire career. I was doing some looking into this today, and in the 11 years that he's been on the Sixers, he's been eligible to play in 902 games, and of those games, he's played in 452. So we're looking at pretty much half is
That's crazy.
basically what he's missed, and a couple of those are you know, obviously I believe it was I know for sure it was his rookie season, but he might have missed his first 2 years in the league before he actually stepped on the floor. I don't remember exactly and stuff because that was so long ago and stuff. But you know, this year, I think they made the right decision shutting him down.
Yeah.
He's dealing with a knee that has in the past has had 2 meniscus tears. He had surgery, came back against US, for USA basketball, which I think was a really questionable decision. I mean, what's more important? Play for a country that you're not actually from,
Yeah. And he
and
bailed on France, and that was a whole another issue that people were not happy about.
and granted, Cambodia, he didn't go and play for the Cambodian national team, but they likely wouldn't have made the Olympics anyways.
Yeah.
But you bail on France, you come and join the US, which is really, he really caught a lot of criticism for that. And what was it again? Was it against Slovenia? I think it was against Slovenia or Serbia. They were down 15 and he had 19 points on 9 of 11 shooting or something. And he really kind of looked like that player that this is what Philly is going to be paying 300 million to over the next, basically 5 years for. And then he, and USA Basketball said that they thought he was healthy. They didn't detect any injuries on under their watch and whatnot. And then he comes into this season, he misses, I think, 17 of their first 20 games or 16 of their first 20 games, something like that. And then when he did get on the court, he's averaging a career low in field goal percentage and 3-point percentage. He's got his lowest point total in 5 years at 23.8. He's got his lowest rebounding total at 8.2 since his rookie season. And yeah, and they're 21 and 41. So I mean, shutting him down was absolutely the best. But when you talk about retirement, I mean, he's getting into this. He's not getting any younger,
Yeah,
and he's kind of getting into this. And it's lower extremity injuries. If this was a broken hand,
yeah,
or a dislocated shoulder or, something like that, I wouldn't be too concerned. But all of his injuries are lower body injuries. And look Yao Ming, I think, is one of the best examples of that. How
yep,
good was Yao when he was in his prime? And then from pretty much over the course of 2 seasons, it was all gone. It was all done. You
yep.
know,
Him, Todd McCullough, all those those big guys with those foot injuries and things like that.
Well, even going way back, look at Willis Reed. Like I don't
Yeah,
believe, I don't have the numbers up in front of me and stuff, but I don't believe he was ever really the same player after that 72 finals when
foot
he
injury.
came, when he famously
Hobbled back on.
came out, scored the first two baskets and stuff like that. So, those big guys, when they start getting those injuries, it's a real problem for them because there's so much weight on that on those joints and on those bones and muscles. So
Yeah,
I really don't like his chances. I think that this is the beginning of the end for Joel Embiid. He's when he was healthy, he was a great player.
won
Um,
an MVP, so he has the potential. But
and the thing with Philly is that they've been accustomed to him missing games, but they've always been able to, for the most part, they've always been able to kind of weather the storm and figure out a way to play well while he's gone and you know all this stuff. But this year it just hasn't been the case, and Paul George has not worked out for them either. And they gave a lot of money to Paul George to bring him over, and he's averaging 16 points a game, and he's only
yeah,
played in 41 games. So I mean, if they decide to shut him down, which you might as well at this point, like you might as well, and try and honestly, I'm not one to tank, but this is how you tank, right? Is
yeah,
you take your star players off when it's obvious that the season's not going anywhere, and then you see kind of
how
what
things
happened.
look for next year.
Yeah, and you still put out you know the best team that you can put out and stuff, but you kind of try to reduce the you know
Likelihood of you winning or
the
being
the,
competitive.
the talent on the roster, because you don't ever want to advocate for, okay, don't play hard, because that
Yeah,
looks bad. And we already remember the trust the process years where they were really putting on players that a lot of those guys shouldn't have even been in the league. They were basically inflated G League players that got onto an NBA floor simply for the purpose of losing. So yeah,
yeah.
I don't think it's I really don't like what uh how it's looking for Philly at all.
Speak Speaking of bigs, your guy Myers Leonard there also announced his retirement. A couple days ago, I
my
saw that on
my
Facebook.
my
Your
my
Heat
guy.
guy,
He
sorry,
plays
not your
plays
guy.
two seasons, plays 2 seasons with the Heat, and he's my guy all
He's
of a
your
sudden, eh?
guy. He's a Heat
Oh
guy,
God.
and
Oh God.
then another notably, a notable injury for a big following All Star break was Wemby. So hoping that he, is okay. I don't know if there's been much update on his deep vein thrombosis that I believe was in the right shoulder, if I'm not mistaken, or right upper area. But I'm hoping that he can come back and kind of it's not something long term, because there's been a couple of guys that have had blood clots, notably Chris Bosch and one of the guys that played for the Bucks. If it's from Europe, I can't remember his name. It might have been Teletovic, if I'm not mistaken.
I think
But
yeah, I think you're right about that one.
those are the two that come to mind. So I'm not sure what's going to be happening with Wemby, but hopefully it's something that's short lived, because that would be terrible if he had to permanently shut it down.
Yeah, which I don't, I'm no doctor, so I don't want to act like I am. I mean, blood clots, they can be very serious. Look what happened to Chris Bosh, who's a player that both of us are very, very familiar with, given that he played for both of our teams. But this is less of an injury and more of a a health concern. So Wemby's been pretty damn healthy his first 2 seasons. So this is kind of, I'm hoping that this is just an anomaly, and given that it's up in his shoulder and it's not down on his lungs like it was with Bosch, that he's young enough and this will be a non-issue moving forward and stuff. But they made they made the right decision shutting him down. You can't play with a with a blood clot. It's too dangerous. And
Yeah, and then if you're on blood thinners and other things are happening, I mean, Brandon Ingram was also one that had them and came back and is had a career.
That's who it was. Right. But
So,
I mean, you look at them. I mean, at the time that happened, they were 23 and 29. So they've gone since then. They've gone 4 and 6. So they've kind of they're kind of just staying kind of down here and all this. So when you trade for a guy like De'Aaron Fox at this point of the season, it's very hard to do that transition and have it click just like that, right? It's not usually that seamless. And really, I mean, the only team that I can think of that made major changes midway through a year and still was able to compete was Cleveland in 2018 when they traded half their damn roster because they didn't like the construction with the D Wades and Derrick Rose and all the I think Jay Crowder, and it just was not a good not a good fit.
Isaiah Thomas was there for a bit. Like they blew that whole thing up.
Mid season, and they still made the finals, which again, going back to LeBron, just speaks on his on his greatness. But that's kind of that's kind of old news considering that was 7 years ago now, which is pretty crazy to think about, really. But San Antonio, I think they're better off, honestly, to try and same thing like Philly. At some point you might want to think about shutting De'Aaron Fox down too. Just get him ready for next year. I mean, there's
20 something games left, you said. So
there's 22 games left, right? So you play him for another
5 or 7,
12 games maybe. Shut him down for the last 10. That can be justified. And they're third last in the West, and there's quite a few teams. So I was gonna say maybe they can go and get
a lottery pick.
Go and get maybe the another like a top 3 pick or something. I don't think that's gonna happen. Just looking at the standings, because they're third last in the West, and if they were in the East with that same record, they'd be sitting in 10th right now. Right, so they've got 1 win more than the Bulls, who are in that 10th spot. So. I don't think, but I mean, imagine them if they got Cooper Flagg.
That'd be crazy. We don't even know if he's going to come out. That's another thing. Yeah. He's really teasing that second year. So I think the coaching staff will tell him, hey, man, go get that bread, because he would really be giving up a lot of money too if he waits that extra year with a contract and certain things that are going to happen. I heard it'd be like, I think if not more than 10 mil that he's could lose if he opts to stay another year, and then you always risk the chance of what's going to happen to your draft stock. Harrison Barnes did that. His draft stock fell. Still had a great NBA career, won a championship, but I mean, if you're that highly touted, one and done makes sense. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens.
But in this day of NIL, though, right, where they're actually getting paid to stay in college, I mean, does one and done really, he's still gonna get probably, I don't know what he makes off of NIL, but he's making some money, and with the way that because he was he went to training camp, I believe, with Team USA this year and stuff, and they were all talking about how talented he was. Everybody on that team was really
raving about him,
giving him a lot of praise, which I thought was which I think is really telling, because he's had some there's been a little bit of criticism of him at Duke, just not is this really the kid that they thought? And then he had 1 monster game about a month ago where I think he had 45, and people were like, oh, okay, this is the kid that we're that
we're
we're
going
kind of
after. Yeah.
looking at. But I actually have one thing I want to ask you about before we call it a day. I would like to switch gears to the WNBA for a minute. Diana
Yeah.
Taurasi announced her retirement after 20 years the other day. Given that you are the WNBA expert out of the two of us, what are your thoughts on the retirement, and then maybe just summarize her, her career and her impact on women's basketball?
Yeah. I mean, the first question that comes to mind is what hasn't she done? She's won at every level. Uh, 3 championships in college, multiple accolades, #1 draft pick. A lot of respect for her because she stayed with one franchise, won 3 championships with the Phoenix Mercury. And I remember that first phase of when I really got into the WNBA, her and Cappie Pondexter, playing with Penny Taylor, like they were kicking ass. They were good. Those were the teams that I watched growing up. And then I think she went to like 5 or 6 Olympics, like just she's done everything. Finals MVP, league MVP. Um, but she's also a really good person. Some of the stuff that Sue Bird has shared, ultra competitive, but then, paving the way for youngsters, picking up the bill for team dinners, great sense of humor. Had the Mercury, the Mercury were one of the teams that kind of started that domino effect of really investing in building facilities for their teams, right? Huge practice facility, weight room, chefs, all that. They named their practice facility after her. No other team has done that. So it just goes to show. I got to see her play this year too, which was super cool in the All-Star game and all that. So that was neat. She was on Team USA obviously as well. So can't say enough good things about her. I'm sure she'll be connected to the game in some way, whether she decides to coach, broadcast, whatever it is that she does. But I think she made the right call. She just said, I don't have any more left. I've given what I want to give. She's walking away on her own terms. Could probably play another year or two if she really wanted to, but she's over 40. She's done what she needs to do. She's got nothing left to prove in terms of winning or chasing records. I'm sure some of her records will probably never be touched. I think she's the all-time leading scorer in the WNBA, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if, Caitlin Clark touches that, but that's to be seen. But yeah, great career. And I think she'll hopefully be able to mentor some of the young up-and-coming women in the game.
So my last question, with regards to her, where would you rank her in the history of women's basketball, along with the Cheryl Millers and the Sue Birds and the Lisa Leslies, and all that?
Yeah,
Where is she? Top 10, top 5, top 3?
that's a hard question. I think she's got to be somewhere in the top 5 right now. I put Lisa Leslie, Cheryl Swoops, Tina Thompson, Sue Bird, Candace Parker in there. I would say somewhere in the top 5. If you ask me that question in another 10 years, I think she'll always be a top 10 player just because of what she's done. But the WNBA is only 28 years old. So it's young. But right now, I would say she's top 5 all time if I had to answer that question.
So is that is that just your ranking for WNBA? Because correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe Cheryl Miller played in the.
Cheryl Miller didn't play in the WNBA. That's why,
because it wasn't it wasn't around.
Yeah. So I would say in the WNBA, she's top 5. If you go all time, maybe somewhere top 10, top 15.
Okay, yeah, because I'm just I'm just looking at a list that ESPN put together, and this was about 4 years ago for their 25th anniversary, and this is their top 5. They had her at number 1, Diana Taurasi at number 1. They had Tamika Catchings at number 2.
Yeah.
They had Cynthia Cooper at number 3.
Yeah.
Maya Moore at number 4.
And
at number 5 they had Lisa Leslie. So
yeah, it's tough. I mean, who do you like? Do you add a Cheryl Swoops or a Tina Thompson to that list? There's so many people, right? You know, there's Elena Beard, there's Cappy Pondexter. Like I could name people that you could make an argument for in that top 10. Simone Augustus. Like there's so many great players. So it's tough to say. I would put Diana Taurasi in my top 5, but you could have her in a top 10 too if you really wanted to. It just depends on what you're looking at to rank those players. What kind of things are you going off resume, are you going off rings, impact to the game, all that. So it really depends.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summation of that. I've obviously watched her over the years and stuff like that, and she was around when we were when we were kids, and I watched a little
Yep.
bit more WNBA as a kid than I do now. But she sure has a lot of respect from the NBA players and stuff, and that's kind of where I kind of noticed her the most and stuff.
Yeah.
Out at All Star, I believe she was out at All Star Weekend, and Kevin Durant and LeBron and Chris Paul and all these.
Kobe had a lot of respect for her too.
Yeah, Kobe. I mean, Kobe was probably the biggest advocate of the WNBA out of everybody. Given that he's got that he had daughters, I think that obviously played into it, and all that. But I believe Diana Taurasi right before Kobe died, and I know we mentioned this in our our first segment of our first episode when we were talking about Kobe. I had mentioned that right before he died, he had done that interview where he kind of he kind of stated that he thought there were some WNBA players that could play in the league right now, and that was one. And I did say I did disagree with that just because of the physicality and stuff like that. But he did mention Diana Taurasi, I believe, in that interview was one of the people that he mentioned. So when you've got Kobe giving you praise like that, you're a great player regardless of the the league you play in.
Yeah, no, she will go down as one of the greats for sure.
Well, my friend, I think that that pretty much wraps us up for today. I know we were planning to do a little bit of a shorter episode, and we still I think we still got to about 45 minutes. I don't have a timer in front of me, but
about there.
Yeah, but so we didn't quite hit our goal, but as per usual, we kind of got talking a little bit more than we anticipated. I think looking ahead in the next couple weeks, we'll be talking a little bit more about March Madness as it comes closer. I'm sure you'll be keeping your eye on the women's tournament. I'm certainly keeping my eye on the men's side of things. I certainly watch I probably watch pretty close to as much college basketball as I do with the NBA. So that'll be that'll be coming up, and the playoffs are going to be kicking off here in just over a month's time. So I think there's lots to look forward to, but I think we will leave it there. So thank you everybody for tuning in to 204 Hoops Talk once again. I'm Blaine Stenson.
And I'm Arjun Narula, and we will catch you folks next week.
Peace.
Take care.